for joining us. Jean-Christophe, or Jesse, as most people call him, has a great corporate career, both at Shell and PSA. He has decided to transform himself and has gone through a journey that he made a business out of. So he's now a transformation and growth coach for many individuals. And he would like to share his insights on how he got there and the topic of stress, which is the main conversation for today. I'm really excited to hear about this. So over to you, Jean-Christophe.
Okay, well, bonjour everybody. I will just make a qualification to what you said. I don't think I decided to transform myself because life decided to transform me. So that's pretty much what happened. Why do I want to talk about stress? It's probably because for two things. I had a period in my life where I experienced pretty intense acute stress for a very long time. So that acute stress became chronic stress. And as part of leaving Shell, and I went back to university. I did study neuroscience and psychology, and I got a very good understanding biologically and cognitively um, wise about what is really happening with stress. And I realized that a lot of people talk about stress. If you Google stress, you will find 1.3 billions, but in fact, entries, but in fact, quite a few people have a very good understanding of what is going on. And today, you're going to be learning, I think, or rediscovering what stress is about. Okay? Uh, can you move to the next slide? So what we're going to do is going to do a short centering exercise. It's not typical in Shell to do that, but we don't work in Shell anymore, so it's time to learn new things. And it's called the 6S. And for the people who are kind of mobile, I will ask you to stand up and we will do a few exercises. Then I'm going to talk about stress, but first, because I'm a storyteller, I will start with a story. And then based on that story, we're just going to go into understanding what that story was about. And we're going to look at the psychobiological underlying mechanism of stress. And then I'm going to give you some time to say, okay, what did you get out of it? What is new? And then we will come back because as you will see, it's a pretty depressing picture. But what can we really do? And I will explain there is hope, but with a caveat. And then I will send you back again into breakout rooms and I want you to start to transform these insights into what are you going to do about it? And then there will be some key takeaways in case you feel you've not learned anything today. And I will close it out with some Q&A. Is that okay? So that's a program today. For the people who are mobile, who want to try it, so I would like to teach you the 6S routine. We're going to start with the first S, which is simple enough. In yoga, it's called the mountain pose. I simply want you to really stand up and connect your feet, close your eyes, and it's the first S of standing up and just connect with your body. Get out of your head and connect with your body for a few seconds. Okay? And now we'll ask you to kind of open your eyes. You're just going to look at me, stay in the pose you have. But the second S is called the spinal breathing, and that's how it looks like. You're going to bend forward and close your arm by breathing out. And then you're going to breathe in by bending backwards and opening your arm. And you're going to do that in a rhythm. So bending forward, closing your arm, breathing out, and then breathing in, opening up, bending backwards. Get into your rhythm. Close your eyes. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't be self-conscious. Get into the spinal breathing. And get into your own rhythm. We're going to do that for at least 10 or 12 spinal breathing. So please take your pace. Now, I would like you to come back in the standing position that you had. Your metabolism has been a little bit excited, so reconnect with your body. Things have changed. And now we're going to do the third S. We're going to sit. So you can grab your chair, but I want you to sit with intention. So what it means, I want a straight back. I want you to be really intentional about your sitting and your feet on the ground. Okay, so sitting with a straight back. And now we're going to do the 4S, which is we're going to side out because we had a day today, and I'm sure there's been some level of frustration. So I want you to breathe in and side out, like, ah, and you're going to side out quite a few frustration for today, for yesterday, for your entire life if you want. So I want to really some vocals siding out because I'm not hearing anything yet. Maybe you're on mute, but I want you to side out. You breathe in and yes. Good. And now we're going to do the 5th S. And I want you to close your eyes again. Only me is going to keep my eyes closed. And I want you to give me a beautiful smile, okay? Because that's an S of smile. And imagine if you had open eyes, you would give me sparkling eyes as well. So that's what I want to see, that beautiful smile. No, no, Dagmar, you're cheating. Don't be a control freak. Smile. That's beautiful. Okay. Thank you for smiling. And then we're going to finish with the 6th S, which is silence, just for a few moments. Just pay attention to what's going on your face, in your body. And when you're ready, you can come back. Thank you. So, now that we don't feel so stressed anymore, we're just going to talk about stress. But before we talk about stress, there will be a few words which are going to come back. We're going to talk about stressor. Stressor is something which is outside of yourself, which is stressing you. Then there will be a stress response.
JC, excuse, I have muted you by accident because somebody was in the audio. Can you just unmute yourself, please, yourself? Yeah.
So a few terms that we need to look at. A stressor, because under the stress umbrella, everybody is saying, I'm stressed. It's, for some people, it's an emotion. For some people, it's a situation. For some people, it's a response. So we will clarify what is a stressor, what is a stress response, what is kind of acute stress, which is like happening very quickly, versus chronic stress, which is something we carry on in our life. We're going to talk about appraisal. How do we go about assessing what is stressful? And we will talk about adrenaline and cortisol. But now let's move to the story, which is the next slide. So before we get into some technicalities, you don't know, but I have one chicken in my garden, and I love my chicken. It's like my pet. And I just want to explain what is happening to my chicken and myself while we are sitting in the garden. Imagine that an elephant is coming running through the garden. There will be, in my chicken and myself, a very quick appraisal system which is going to look at 4 criteria. How severe is the situation? Well, an elephant is pretty severe. How predictable it is? It's not predictable. I don't know if it's going to run left, right, in the center. How controllable it is? Well, the chicken and me, we kind of decide we cannot control the elephant. And what is going to be the duration? Well, we don't know how long it's going to run in my garden. So based on these 4 criteria, without checking with my chicken, I run away and my chicken runs away. Perfect. The elephant goes through, and 20 minutes later, the stressor is gone. The elephant is a stressor is gone. We had the stress response, which was to escape. Now, metabolism is almost back to normal. Good. Now, a little bit later during the day, a fox is coming. My chicken goes through the appraisal system in the same way, not controllable, pretty severe. I don't know how long it's going to be, and I cannot control it. It flies and tries to go to the keeper hawk, which is where my chicken stays at night. But for me, my appraisal is quite different because, well, I mean, it's a fox. And likely the fox, I will have some control over it because it's probably going to be scared of me if I start to scream, which I do. So my response is not to fly away, it's to fight. And guess what? The fox is going away. But that's now the big difference between the chicken and me. 20 minutes later, the chicken is like for the elephant, back to normal in terms of metabolism. But me, it's a very different story. We had an acute stressor, an acute stress response. Now I'm starting to think, what can I do? Because the fox is going to come back. And I'm starting to prepare myself by saying, do I need to build a better fence? So I start to ruminate about the fox. And dinner time is coming. And as I talk to my kids about what happened, I relive the whole experience of the fox. And my whole metabolism is now being stressed because there is a threat. My chicken is long gone asleep. She doesn't think about the fox anymore. I go to bed. But what do you do during the night? You have a part of your brain which is called the hippocampus, where you relive all the memories of the day because the brain has to decide, do I keep it? Do I store it long term? Or do I get rid of it? And so as I relive the day in my dream, guess what? I get the experience of the fox. And my body doesn't know any better. The fox is back, so I'm starting to produce a stress response. And we will see what the stress response is. The following morning I wake up. I've slept badly and I said, well, it's because of the fox. I think about the fox again, and being my body is reacting to the fox. For my chicken, she has been back to a normal metabolism, but me, since I've seen the fox, I have high cortisol level and I cannot go back to normal. This is called chronic stress. Now, that was a fun part. Now we're just going to look at the next slide and we're going to get into the detail of all this psychobiological mechanism. First thing I wanna say, the myth of stress is good for you. A little bit of stress, we've heard that in Shell before. It's good for peak performance. Yes, for the brain, because when basically you have like a stressful situation like meeting a daily timeline, or me like with public speaking now, there is a little bit of a peak performance which is being required. The first stress hormone you produce is called the adrenaline for 20 minutes. And the brain loves the adrenaline because the adrenaline makes you kind of focus, makes you like remember things very sharply, makes you very engaged, very alive. So we love the adrenaline. But after 20 minutes, the body is saying, I'm going to stop to give you that good stuff. I need to replace the short-term adrenaline by a long-term stress hormone, which is called cortisol. And then it's a very different story, as we're going to see on the next slide. But what it means is, then I no longer get the good stuff. I'm starting to get cortisol. No, not yet. And the problem of cortisol is like, it's wearing down my body. It's making me very, very tired. And I will explain. And my performance is going down. So for your brain, there might be good stress, which is like a little bit of a challenge, something you can kind of overcome. Perfect. That's what we've been designed for, like every animal. Acute stress, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, no big deal, enjoyable. After that, the body starts to really take a toll, and it's chronic stress. The problem, though, is modern life is not when our biological system has been developed. Our biological system has been developed million years ago with every animal to deal with acute stress response. Today, our modern world is about chronic stress. It's a mortgage. Is am I going to lose my job? Stuff which lasts forever. Chronic disease. In the past, you used to die quickly. You didn't last very, very long with a chronic disease. It's very different now. So for the carer, for example, we have to deal with situations that we have not been designed for. Next slide. So I'm going to explain to you that stress has three ways it's impacting us. First, directly biology, the body. Number two, it's going to have an impact on your cognition. The brain is an organ, so it's being changed by the cortisol. But number three, there is an indirect way that we are basically being impacted, because as your brain is not functioning so well, you don't make very smart decisions, and so you contribute to not reacting very well to stress. So let's go to the direct biological response. Wow, complicated. Don't worry, it's not going to be an anatomy cool, but what I want to say is stress. If you have to remember three things. Stress means I need to deal with something which is threatening me. So I need to be ready for action because I'm going to fight, or I need to be basically ready for escaping. I'm going to fly. And in some situations that we will talk about, I might be ready for freezing, like I'm going to look like I'm dead because that's my best strategy. That's what the mouse does with a cat. It's like, don't kill me because I'm already dead. Sometimes it works. But how do we do that? We do that by telling the body, I need more fuel to the muscle. So give me all the sugar you can because I prepare myself for action. I need to save energy because I might have to run or fight. I need to save building material. Okay? So, and I also need to kind of shut down my emotions because, it's not the time to feel depressed. It's not the time to feel like, not so good about myself. So I shut down all of my emotions. The best metaphor I can give you is like Kim Jong. Kim Jong believes that he's going to be attacked by America. So he diverts all the resources. No more money for infrastructure, education, health. Because what's the point? I need to put all my money into a standby army, which is not doing anything but in case of. And that's exactly what we do. And so what we do is we shut down our whole system. After 20 minutes, you start to tell your immune system, stop screening for cancerous cells because, it's not where the energy needs to be. It starts to basically tell your reproductive system, stop about the libido thing. It's not the time to make a baby. Every single organ is being told, stop to repair yourself, stop to basically screening what might be dysfunctioning. I need the energy for something else. Okay? What you see on the right-hand slide, there is not a single organ in your organism which is not being damaged by the cortisol, including your brain. I will leave it at that. Let's move to the next slide. Now, wow, why do I talk about the salmon now? I don't know if you know the cycle of the salmon, but it's amazing, Lives in a lake, takes 2 years to move down the ocean, to adjust its metabolism to be from a freshwater fish to a salty water fish, spend 5 years in the ocean, and one day needs to go back home to make a baby. But on the way back, he cannot be a freshwater fish anymore. So it's going to be very stressful to go uphill. You've seen the salmon going upriver. And so the cortisol level is going up, and up. Okay, interesting. Then what we've been told by the scientists is, well, like, the poor salmon, then he finds a mate, he breeds, and he dies of exhaustion, and because he has not been eating, that's why he dies from. Well, no. He could carry on. He dies from cortisol poisoning, but he's no longer capable of managing his cortisol level. And the salmon is not the only one. The latest research on human beings and what is causing death could be cortisol poisoning. And I'm going to explain to you why. You remember the hippocampus I talked about, that part which is like processing the memories, is also a very strange part of the brain because you have the sensors for your cortisol level in the hippocampus. So far, so good. The problem is the more you have chronic stress, the more you have cortisol. And the cortisol is damaging the sensors which are supposed to measure how much cortisol you have. So when you do that year after year, you shut down your sensors. And so your body doesn't know anymore that you have too much cortisol. And if you take blood test of most of age people, like my parents, their cortisol level is up the roof, as they can no longer down-regulate and lower the cortisol level. What it means for my parents is like they don't have any spare capacity. So they need routine. They'll feel stressed all the time by anything which is new, not because they're stupid, not because they couldn't do it before. Could you stay on that slide? Yeah. It's simply because they no longer have the ability to regulate their cortisol level. So think about it. Over a very long period of time, cortisol is leading you to death. Next. I will have to accelerate. So the brain is an organ like any other organ, so it's being impacted by the cortisol. What is going to happen after a while is memory and concentration is going to go down. If adrenaline gave me sharpness, if you make me public speaking for 24 hours, I'm going to start to be sluggish. I'm going to even lose, before 24 hours, I'm going to lose my track of thoughts. Yeah, you feel overwhelmed because you bottom up your emotions. They're no longer flowing. Yeah, so it's like there is a lack of Now, could you stay on the slide, please? There is a lack of motivation. You feel angry, you feel irritable, restless, and all of that leads to bad decision because your mind is not functioning as it should. So you might get into risky or aggressive behavior, which is reinforcing basically the stress level. You're not taking care of yourself. We all know about that. Say, I know I'm not doing that well, but really now is not the time to do something about it. We self-medicate, drugs, alcohol, whatever is your escapism. It's because we are not doing so well. And this can lead to depression and, of course, burnout. Good. Can we move to the next slide? Now, I'm going to ask Dagmar to do some breakout rooms of 3, if it was possible. And I would like you to, for 5 minutes, it was quite a lot of information, but what do you take from this? Which ideas are the most useful? And you will come back in 5 minutes, we discuss a little bit, and then we carry on. Okay?
Okay, you can just follow whatever pops up on your screen, and you will be reassigned automatically. So there's some people who may have technical issues, so I'll just wait. So Emilia, Anton, any issues, anything I can help with? There we go.
I'm not going to go to a breakout room, so
Yeah, exactly. So we can stay here or join. No, I think I probably have
Anton,
to.
you can stay with us if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think as a facilitator, I cannot plug myself into the other room. I don't know, Anton, do you have any problems? Just seeing that you haven't joined the room yet. I think oh no, he's actually there twice. He has two ways to connect into the teleconference, so they're all talking now. I just pause the recording here.
I will just continue. Is that okay? Miyazaki, could you? Yes. So what are we going to do next is, next slide. Thank you.
Jean-Christophe, are we allowed to ask questions? Because we had a discussion with our breakout session and we came up with a few questions. Or do you first want to finish the story?
I will finish.
And then ask the questions.
Yeah, I will finish and then keep the question. That's okay?
Okay. Yeah.
So I have some good news for you, and you will see not so good news as well. but there will be more animal stories that I'm going to tell. That's what you're going to remember from that talk. You will see that there is no one size fits all strategy about, I'm going to follow that 10 steps for stress reduction and it's going to work for me. No, you will have to design one for yourself and many times during your lifetime. But if you do so, there is some hope. So let's move. What does, next slide, what does, I told you that we have an appraisal system, which is based on what is very important is how much control do we have? Is that predictable? Okay. But also what research has found that being surrounded by friends or people who care for you is very important for stress reduction. Exercise, I will explain why, and meditation, and we have a specialist on the call here. So he will probably back me up. I hope he does. But first, control. Let's talk about the rat. So imagine you take a rat, you put it in a cage, and that cage is being electrified. Wow. The rat doesn't know it. But at first you electrify it randomly and there is nothing it can do. He's overly depressed. After a while, he's freezing. He's staying in a part of the cage and he says, I don't have any control. I don't know when it's coming. Let me die. I don't want to do anything. He's utterly depressed, waiting to die. Then what you do, say, okay, it was very cruel, so I'm just going to give him an electrical lever, a kind of a button, and if he learns to push a button, electrification stops. Wow. The rat sees the lever, is kind of curious. Next time there is electrification, he tries everything, and by chance, bim! Wow, it works. So now he knows he has some level of control. And if you measure his cortisol level, it's not back to normal because he's still in that situation where he doesn't know if there will be, when it's going to be the next shot, but he has some level of control, he can be with it. Now what you do, you remove the lever. And straight away, he's back to a very prostrate state, cortisol level maximum. He knows there is no lever, there's nothing he can do, he's waiting to die. So you bring back the lever this time, but you disconnect the lever from being able to stop the electrification. And you'll see the rat going to the lever, frantically pushing it. Nothing is being done, but he's doing something. Guess what? So your level of cortisol is not back to normal, but it's not that bad. Why? Because the illusion of control is sufficient. So it's not actually having control which is so important. It's to believe that you do. Think about how religion works. So illusion of control is as effective as actual control itself. Now, predictability. You remove the lever, but now what you do is when you electrify the rat randomly, very quickly, prostate, cortisol level super high, let me die, I don't want to play that game, let me out of that planet. If you give a sound signal, which is giving some warning, the rat is like so happy, the cortisol level is almost back to normal. Why? Because he knows that when there is no sound, he doesn't have to be anxious. When there is a sound, he can prepare himself by, oh, it's not going to be very pleasant. But between no sound, he can recover. So predictability is very important. Now, friends. Oh wow, it's nice to have friends, and yeah, it is, and we know that loneliness is with cortisol level is one of the biggest cause of death in old age. But let me talk to you about the baboon. The baboon is a kind of it's a beautiful monkey which lives in a very hierarchical society. And at the top of that hierarchical society, you have the alpha male. And that baboon, he has found a fantastic way to relieve himself from stress. When he's stressed, he takes a lower ranked baboon male, he gives a beating, and he feels better. What does a guy who received the beating? He's looking around for a lowest ranked baboon, he gives a beating, and he feels better. Until you get to the lowest ranked baboon male, and he gets beaten out of nowhere, no control whatsoever. The only option he has is, I could beat the woman, but I don't do that. What he does, he spends time with a woman and they groom each other. So he's relieving his stress by being with a female and doing female grooming stuff. You measure his cortisol level? Pretty healthy, quite normal. You go to the alpha baboon, he has spike of cortisol all day long. And do you know why? Because he knows one thing. He knows that when the next alpha male is going to take his place, he will not be able to stay in the tribe. He has been beating everybody up since he was an alpha male. So he's going to be, sorry for this. So he's going to be excluded from the tribe and he's going to die very young with a high cortisol level alone. Think about becoming a CEO versus maybe being a lower ranked. I mean, that you can make the assumption yourself. So friends, they work for the baboon and they work for us too, okay? Find some female to do some grooming if you're male, and maybe for some of you female, find other female to have coffees and just feel that you belong. No, exercise. The whole story about the stress was saying, I need more energy because I need to take action, to fight or to flight. So of course your body is loaded for action. So when you feel stressed, do sport. Because at least that's one way of taking care of the additional sugar. You're not going to die from cardiovascular disease because you're going to use some of that sugar. Feeling stress is to be ready for action, take action, move. Now, meditation. Oh yeah, meditation is coming back. And it's nothing magic. It's because the breath is connected to the autonomic system. And the autonomic system is like what is managing your organs. And you know, the willpower, except if you're a very experienced yogi, you cannot control your heart, you cannot control your kidney. But what happens with a autonomic system is when you breathe in, you activate a sympathetic system, which is like exciting your organs. So your heart is contracting. When you breathe out, you use a parasympathetic system, which is relaxing your body and your organs. That's when you basically, your heart is being relaxed. So meditation does two things. It's a gateway to breathing. And the gateway to breathing means that you can activate your autonomic system and you breathe less frequently and you breathe out more than you breathe in, so you naturally relax your body using the parasympathetic system. And the other aspect of meditation is because you kind of create that inner peace with the biology, you kind of let the stressor through your mind, you take some distance, and it gives you a chance for reframing, for redefining the relationship you have with that stressor. Yeah? So meditation works. It's nothing magic. It's rooted in biology. Now, that was a good news. We can do something about it. And it's a bad news as well. You talk about control. Well, if I have control and the illusion of control, I'm going to be like the rat. I'm going to have my cortisol level down. It depends. Because, you know, in the past, we used to be much more fatalistic and we had, you know, God or religion or whatever, you know, it's in the hands of God. But now, when shit happens to you, there is no God. It's all on you, man. So you have control. You're responsible for your own misery. This is very stressful. Predictability. Well, my wife was sick for a while and I was like the rat, but instead of the rat, like being able to renew myself before, you know, 2 appointment visits at the hospital, I was stressing out about it. What is the next one going to be? There was no recovery time for me. So what I mean is, yes, for rats, control is good, predictability is good. For human, it's more complicated. And then for Dagmar, maybe when she sees the elephant, she doesn't have the same appraisals on me because she used to ride elephant when she was a baby girl in India. And I'm not. So what is a stressor for her is not for me. And it's even more complicated because now I'm not stressing about mortgages, but 20 years ago I did. So we do change over time, which means that you have to experiment with yourself. Do I need more control or less? Do I want more predictability or less? What about my friends? What is the kind of friends I want? What is the kind of centering practices or meditation I want to do? What is the kind of exercises I want to do? And you have to design a program for yourself, which will be unique. And if you take the 10 steps that you see on the internet, it's very likely that it's not going to work. Or it might work for now, but not in 5 years' time. It's simply to be aware, and that's why I'm giving that, course. Be aware of the underlying mechanism. Own it. Be responsible of it. Learn and experiment with it, and find ways to alleviate the stressors of modern life. Good. Next. It's time to do something with what we learned today. So I'm going to go back to breakout room, and I want you to think about 3 questions. What is possible now with what you've learned? What is available to you with these new insights? What will you stop doing, or maybe start doing, to apply these insights and give them some momentum? And I'm a coach, so it's like, yeah, well, what is the first baby tiny step you're going to take today? That's what I want to know. Thank you. See you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do some grooming.
Online, I'm not sure that's the right
I'm going to
moment.
do some grooming. I mean, I don't have much hair, but I could do you. So
I sure need it. No, but it's, I think, great talk again, and I just really been listening to a kind of webinar recently as well that really made me think a lot about this whole topic of the stress response we can often not control, but it's really what we do with it, and that is so unique to every person. That it's really all about finding out what it is for yourself to deal with all the stuff that comes our way, and that's kind of the lifelong challenge, to understand how you.
yeah, but as I've said, we have a remarkable way of dealing with stress, but it's very predictable. The way it deals with stress is very predictable. That's why people need to be educated by saying, instead of working against it, I'm just going to partner with my stress response, which has been fine-tuned, developed over a million of years. But how do I make it work for me? And most people are simply trying to work against it. It's exhausting, and
It doesn't work anyway.
I cortisol poisoning anyway. So no, but honestly. So it's, what are the stresses in my life? What is my relationship to them? Why did I become stressor in the first place? Some are like imprinted, like maybe a snake, but others are like, A lot of my coaching is people come to me and say, I have a problem. And I listen to them. I said, I don't think we're going to talk about the problem. I think we're going to talk about the story you tell about the problem, because that's what the problem is. It's your relationship to what is happening here, which is a problem. So let's leave the problem at the door and let's reflect on why.
The perception, the lenses.
Why do you decide to see it this way? What is the story behind the story? And you make them aware, and they say, oh my God. Can we bring the problem back? It's not a problem anymore.
You change your perception, you haven't changed the world. Exactly. Also, wait, very true. And next week I'm going to give this course, The World of Difference. I don't know if you've seen it or if you have subscribed to it at all, but it's a little bit about that. I don't really do any coaching business at the moment, JC, but it's basically it's a bit the heritage of the stuff I learned in Shell. But then I really believe that some of that stuff really belongs into everyone's mind. It shouldn't be a corporate knowledge, but really it's to be brought down into every housewife or every household man.
Every child.
Every child, exactly. And the methodology is so beautiful. And they now have also a children version, just created a few months ago, and it's based on DISC. So the whole kind of nuts and bolts are, I think, very well developed, and nothing is perfect. But I think it's the type of thinking that very much talks to that. It's to stop thinking that the problem is out there. The perception is what you should try to understand. It's really also how you look at things.
The perception is like the interpretation of what you see. So basically it's a relationship. It's like when I coach couples.
Mhm.
You know, we come about this, blah, 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 blah. And I look at them and I say the problem is not what you talk about.
Mhm.
It's not about this the problem. The problem is the pattern, the dance you have about talking about that topic. Because that is what is like the problem. The toxic dance. It's not the topic itself. It's how you are together in disagreement. This is what the issue is. So you tell me it's not this. No, it's not this. It's a dance that you've developed over time. So let's learn to dance again. It's liberating because it's no longer about it brings some lightness when we talk this way. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I see hope. It's not about that thing that I cannot do anything about, or that it's about if I created that relationship in the first place, what is possible for me? What else could I create?
It's about learning something completely from fresh, almost like rather than trying to change a pattern that is long rooted and just drains your energy and feels like you've never been able to get rid of that. But if you just indeed make this about a completely different play to begin with, you may still progress, but you may not realize you look at the whole thing in a different way. And I think you're giving so many amazing new thoughts, and I just really not imagine how you ever became an engineer with this type of gift that you have, JC, really.
Yeah. When do you bring them back?
Probably now, because then because they also still wanted to ask some questions. I'll do that. Still take 60 seconds.
Yeah, I decided to be quite intentional about keeping into the flow because, you know, for some people the questions are interesting, but not for everybody. Then if they want to stay afterwards, I have time. I can't take some of the questions. Yeah. Good.
40 seconds, so it's counting.
Do you find me stressed?
Not at all. I find you very much zoomed in.
Zoomed in, yeah. You remember my proposition to you, huh?
I do, and I will come back to that. It's just a matter of time. I think timing is everything, JC.
Session, huh? You know, so we will make the most of it. We'll go on a walk and we will talk it through, okay?
I think looking forward to something is also a really great source of enjoyment.
Hi guys, you're still with us. That's good. More frustration. I'm not yet going to take question, but it's coming. It's coming. Can we move to the next slide? So, in case you didn't get anything today, I want to make sure that I said a few things which are quite important. Stressors are a normal part of life and they're unavoidable. Okay? Point number one, you will not change that. Point number two, the stress response is the same in humans and animals. Now you know the baboon, the chicken. I mean, you're an animal. Don't think otherwise. Number two, brief stress, the adrenaline stuff. You feel like you're on cocaine. It's kind of good and normal. Enjoy it. Prolonged or frequent, repetitive, like, you know, commuting every day, bam, 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 like this is harmful. Why? Because it's all about energy preservation for taking action. And the problem in the modern world, we don't take action. We look at our computer, we stress about it. The body is screaming for, do something with me, I want to move. And you don't move, you stay with the problem. And this is really damaging you. So the key takeaway, the tagline, when you're going to talk to your friends, you're going to say, psychological stress response in humans is preparation without action. And that's what is killing us. So take some action. Now we move to the final slide, and then I'm going to take the action, the question. I'm going back to my chicken. I have to go back to my chicken because you say, well, that guy, that Shell guy, he knows so much about stress. But the real master here is my chicken. Why? She managed to find a human to have sleepless night about a fox while she can't soundly sleep. That's a master. She has found me to take care of the stressors in life. And I do that pretty well. Finished. So what I want to say, because we only have 5 minutes left, if you have questions, I have time. I can stay after the hour, but I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure that, you know, for the people who have to leave at 4 o'clock, they can leave at 4 o'clock. So the floor is open. I'm curious to know what you want to know.
Yeah, we had one question in our group with Renee and Bert about, let's say, the biochemical antidote to cortisol. You have that exists for adrenaline, but you know, what's the countermeasure to cortisol? How can you neutralize it?
I don't. I'm not a medical expert, but I don't believe that you have like if you get bitten by a snake, you're going to get the anti-poison. So it's not going to be in the form of I'm going to take some pills and then it's going to kind of take my cortisol away. My suggestion is to not start the cortisol factory in the first place. And that's where your responsibility and that's where that talk is about. It's to be knowing that in a very predictable way, when you overstay with a stressor, that's what biology does every single time in human and, well, not in animals, because they don't have these frequent, prolonged stressors as we do. So no, there is no medication. There is no medication. Yeah.
Jean-Christophe, if you look at adrenaline and insuline, they're antagonists. Huh? So what is the antagonist of cortisone?
I don't know.
Okay, because normally in the body, every hormone has a hormone that is the opposite. So just looking.
I can answer that if you don't mind.
You could stimulate that hormone in order to compensate for the cortisol.
Yeah, we have a lovely anti-aging vitality hormone, DHEA, which is the counter of cortisol in the body. And so when we're making excessive amounts of cortisol, it's at the expense of that lovely hormone. And it's interesting, I think, as well, that we all have heard of cortisol, but not that many of us have heard of DHEA.
But DHEA is a growth hormone.
Yes, yeah, but when we're making excessive cortisol, we stop.
No, sure, because the growth hormone in adults, is used for repairing.
Yeah.
What I was talking about. So when you activate cortisol, it's to say I'm going to suppress the growth hormone, which is for repair, because I want to save building materials and I want to save my energy. That's what is happening.
Yeah.
But if you get injection of growth hormone, cortisol, if you see what I mean, in terms of in terms of balancing act, the body is going to say, if cortisol is being secreted, you will not suppress cortisol by excess growth hormone.
No. But it's just if you naturally comes down, then that one can naturally. And there's a relationship between them.
There's a relationship, but it's really the growth hormone, which is so. Why is stress, for example, causing ulcer? It's because the gastric juice in the stomach is very, very acidic. So the wall of the stomach is being damaged every single minute.
Yes.
You need a lot of growth hormone to say, hey, I need to repair my wall, because the gastric sucs are, really toxic for the rest of my body. If you're stressed, cortisol means the stomach is saying, well, yeah, okay, my growth hormone, I'm not going to do it because I'm being told I'm not here to repair my stomach wall. And so what you do is you damage a wall and then you get a hole and then you get basically an ulcer. That's what a growth hormone versus cortisol is looking like.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's just the whole thing is fascinating and simple.
I see in the chat that there's a request for kind of more deepening to continue with the topic, because I think it is really providing a way to talk about this topic that is accessible for people with an engineering mind or trained in that type of way, but at the same time kind of looking for new and different answers. So it's kind of speaking with both languages. So it's really helpful. And so maybe if there's anything you can share later on in the network, that would be very nice. That would be the logical place to put any kind of other resources that you may have.
Yeah, well, I do. If there was one book to read, there is only one, and you're going to love the title. It's Why. Well, it's Why Don't Zebra Have Ulcers? Okay, and it's basically written by a neuroscientist. So what I've presented today is in a simplified form, but it's basically really taking animal studies, and the title is, Why Don't Zebras Have Ulcer? And you will get a deepening of every single part of the body which is being impacted by the cortisol. It's not an easy read because then you're going to stress about stressing. Tell you that. You're going to secrete cortisol by thinking about cortisol in the first place. I don't want you to be stress keep. I don't want you to stress about it. I want you to be saying, okay, what is possible if I don't fight against something which I will not be able to change? So it's my relationship to my stress response that I need to assess, that I need to domesticate, that I need to be comfortable with.
And breathing can play a key role in that. And we had already a great reminder there from Barbara, also from Anton and JC. So yeah, this was a wonderful continuation of this topic.
Anton, did you know, I mean, you can't unmute yourself, but did you know, Anton, about the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system, and that meditation, in fact, is the mechanic? Okay, so you knew about that. Okay. In addition to the reframing of whatever your thought process is.
Yeah.
And I always talk about that because for a lot of folks, meditation and mindfulness, that new thing I need to do, but it's really grounded in biology. It's it was discovered long time ago, and it was discovered from a very different perspective. Simply today, with modern science, we understand what the insights were and why they work the way they work. But there is full alignment between science today and what meditation masters had to say for a very long time.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? It's kind of like we're going back, but with, more insights and wisdom of what happens when we don't do certain things, how we can mess things up easily. It's fascinating.
It's like the mind is a double sword edge, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
On one hand, there is this amazing ability. I was sharing that with Dagmar about reframing anything, seeing possibilities, playing around with perspective. So that amazing ability. But the dark side of it is like when we get hold and we hold too tightly a thought, an anxiety, we dig a hole for ourselves because we ruminate. We think about this 99.9% scenario which will never happen. We we become possessed with a thought. Yeah, so that's a domestication of the mind. How do you make it work for you and not against you?
Yeah, brilliant.
That was very, very, very interesting. Lots of reflection there, and I learned the centering technique before we started. I think I'm going to take that with me.
Wow.
And thank you so much, Jean-Christophe, for spending the time with all of us. We hope you'll continue the conversation with us. And Barbara wanted to say something about joining the Mindfulness Network.
Yeah, I was just saying, you know, encouraging everyone to join the Mindfulness Network and, you know, explore tools and reading books, etc. And, you know, just, we can all just really learn these simple techniques and sharing together and coming together, and everyone benefits, you know, so much from these simple things. And it's not, you know, taking this time to do stuff like that is not, you know, time consuming. Really, we get more time back because we work much more efficiently and effectively, we sleep better, and, you know, so we get more back by engaging in, you know, what Jean-Christophe has been sharing with us and all these other things. It's fantastic. I love it.
If you want, I could do a session on rekindling your spark. But
that sounds fantastic.
That would be less neuroscience, but that would be much more coachy and experiential. But if you, after, you know, reconnecting with the spark within, yeah, we could have a fun session one of these
That
days.
sounds fantastic. I feel sparked already.
I'm going to inscribe right away. I need that too. And I need to run, actually. So sorry for hanging out.
I loved
have a
your
good day, everybody, and enjoy. Yeah.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minna.
Thank you very much.